Why did you say that?
Excuse me.
Good evening, and welcome to the July 22nd, 2014 Town Board meeting for the Town of Ossining. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilperson Jeffrey?
Present.
Councilman Harder?
Present.
Councilman Wilshire?
Present.
Councilman Blaha?
Present.
And Supervisor Donnelly.
Present.
We have this evening a public hearing in Local Law Number 3 of the 2014 purpose of amending the Town of Ossining zoning map. I'll turn this over to our attorney.
That's okay.
Sean.
Actually, thank you. But I think we're going to have our planning consultant, Mr. David Stolman, discuss the various aspects of the changes that are proposed.
Thanks, Wayne. This is actually a fairly simple local law.
Is that mic on?
Yes.
Okay.
Fairly simple local law based upon a petition by the General Electric Company. GE has acquired two parcels adjoining their large campus parcel and is requesting that these parcels, one of which is zoned R30 and the other which is zoned R5, be rezoned to business education, which is the zoning of the large GE Crotonville campus. So these two parcels would be rezoned to the same zoning district designation as the rest of the GE property. This is similar to what GE has done in the past when parcels have become available up there adjoining their property. They've acquired their property basically for buffer purposes, and that's the whole local law.
I would just want to recognize in the audience is the attorney for GE who submitted the petition for the rezoning. If there's any questions.
Is there anyone that's come to address this issue?
This is the GE issue, the GE rezoning of the two parcels. Does anybody came for that particular one?
Not seeing anyone. I have a motion to close this public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have a second public hearing this evening. Sorry about that. We have a second public hearing this evening, Local Law Number 4 of 2014, amending in accordance with a petition filed by Artis Senior Living, LLC, Section 200-53 of the Zoning Code of the Town of Ossining. David?
Sure, thanks. This also is a relatively simple local law. Currently, the GB zone, which lines both sides of North State Road, does not allow assisted living facilities as a permitted use. So this local law would basically do three things. It would define assisted living facilities. It would list assisted living facilities as a permitted principal use in the GB district, subject to site plan approval by the planning board. And this local law would also provide a parking requirement for this new assisted living use.
And I would just want to like to add the fact, because I know that there are people who believe or understand that this local law is being proposed in connection with a specific property, which it is, but the point we're at right now is an amendment of the actual text of the code, which would apply to the entire GB zone. So it doesn't specifically address this property. I mean, there will be an application. That's right, the property in question, or a specific property, which will be the subject, assuming the applicant proceeds, with the entire planning review process, including seeker, at that time.
Can I ask a question? Does this, since this is supposed to be for the whole district, this law, correct?
That's correct.
So is it not appropriate to have any specifications of zoning specific to this type of zoning or this type of business within this law?
Well, there are specific provisions in this law. I'll have Mr. Stolman describe what those are.
Well, okay.
She has a specific question, though.
We had discussed in the work agenda that, for instance, in terms of the any type of facilities, that there be specifications to setbacks or typing of that within the properties for these type of buildings. This has come up. So my question is, would this law not be the appropriate place for that kind of specification to be included?
I don't think this local law would be the appropriate place. None of the other, I shouldn't say none of the other, but most of the other uses that are permitted in the zone have no specific additional requirements other than those that the zone already provides. If this were being made a conditional use, and there are no conditional uses anymore, there won't be after tonight,
Right.
with your next local law, there won't be any conditional uses in the general business district. This is not such a special kind of use relative to the other uses that are permitted in the zone. It's a residential use. It's not such a special kind of difficult or troublesome use that you would want special requirements as well.
I don't think at all it's a troublesome use. My question, I guess here's where I'm thinking. We're in the process of going through a comprehensive plan review. That's going to take some amount of time. And so in the thought process of that, going through that review, there might be differences in terms of what we think we might want to update. If we are in the process of providing new zoning, then wouldn't this be the appropriate time to put in whatever zoning provisions we think are appropriate? And I mean, that might be a discussion as to what's appropriate, but I think my thought process is any facility that's kind of used in whether memory care, nursing, any type of those facilities tend to be bigger facilities, even if they're smaller, bigger facilities. And so I think my concern would be a piece of property, if it's an acre, that it doesn't go all the way to the stretches. And I understand that we already have some zoning that sets setbacks, but it may or may not be enough for a building that might be bigger than the general type of building that might be on North State Road. And so my question is I mean, my first question, and not so much whether you agree or disagree, but is this the place that we would put it?
Is this the time? I think
Well,
that's...
I think the planning board reviewed that as well, considered that, and did not feel that it was required. I mean, right now, if you look down, and you might want to review the zoning code and look at all the various uses that are permitted within the GB zone, which there's a very large variety of uses there, such as child care, nursing care facilities are allowed as well. I mean, there are no specific, as Mr. Stallman said, requirements that are for each different use. As a matter of fact, we have specific bulk requirements or limitations. We have setback requirements that apply to any use that exist in the zone right now, which at this point in time, I'm not aware of any overall review of whether or not the bulk requirements or setback requirements in the GB zone are even being looked at in connection with a review of the comprehensive plan at this point.
Well,
Mrs.
I think the question is it's about setbacks, okay, and maybe in this particular instant too, that's going to come before the planning board, should this move forward. So I think that a public hearing is just that, a public hearing. So we need to hear from the public, but I think we need to take back with us and maybe talk to the potential developer that we would be looking for some kind of setbacks on this, and some of these, properties that butt up. Again, in the comprehensive plan, which we have started reviewing, it does identify that there should be areas between neighborhoods and the commercial properties. So,
And that's my thought. I'm really not looking to any specific. I'm looking towards going forward. If we have more, and if we are in this process of looking at the comprehensive plan, this would be the time to do it for this because we're here. And then going back towards reviewing the comprehensive plan, then we may determine.
but you can't. We have to be very careful because it it's not you're looking for a setback on this particular,
On these type, this is a specific type of zoning.
Can you identify what about this particular use you believe would require a larger setback than any other use, such
Right.
as
That's
Well, I guess,
elder care facilities, dance studio? I mean, they can go down a whole list. What is there specifically about this use that
I
you
think
feel?
that care facilities in general tend to be bigger than a dance studio, or than I mean, if we could talk about the businesses that are on North State Road, the structures, I mean, we could talk about some of the structures, which are pretty big structures, are further down and not set next to any neighborhoods, but the ones that are tend to be smaller type of structures. So
Well, this particular use can't be any larger than what's already allowed in the district, just because of its use. All the uses are governed by the same restrictions. So theoretically, any use can come in and propose a building as large as they could possibly put in under the zoning code, and so I'm a little unclear of why. I mean, is
I
there
think
any?
it comes up because we are about to undertake this comprehensive plan review. And if that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at, then rather than going and waiting to come from here back, I'm trying to deal with this now. But I still haven't gotten the answer as to whether this is whether or not you agree, whether this is the appropriate time.
You don't really have to wait until the whole comprehensive
Right.
planning update is done to do a specific planning study if there is a perceived need. We could, for example, really as separate and apart from this, look at the regulations in the GB district, the dimensional regulations, to determine whether 30% is the appropriate building coverage, whether the setbacks are appropriate or not, district-wide. But that would be a study that we would undertake. If there's a perceived need, we could do something like that. But getting back to what Wayne was saying, I don't see anything about an assisted living facility that would require larger setbacks or a larger standard or more rigorous standards than the other uses that are permitted in the district without those standards.
I also think that we had made it a point of we don't want to start studies, and we want to stay under the whole umbrella of the comprehensive review plan review. To start a study over here and a study over here and a study over here will become cost prohibitive. But I think the real question is, let's say that this went, we did the zoning, we have the public hearing, we changed the zoning. When would the appropriate time for any particular development be to go forward with asking about particular setbacks for that, for that development?
not
Would that
my
be when it's in front of the planning board?
Well, the planning board is confined to follow the code, which
Okay.
which already has the setbacks. I mean, I think the danger or the difficulty is if you're starting to a piecemeal review of every potential use as to what's an appropriate setback now, without going through, because any particular building for any use could theoretically be large, and to say that this particular use requires special attention now, without doing a complete comprehensive
Right.
review of all the uses.
Well, I'm not against doing that, but I also think we've had a conversation, which is what the supervisor is saying, is that we are doing it in order. And so, the fact of the matter is that there's something to be said for dealing with things when they're in front of you rather than going back and dealing. And so I don't think this is about putting something into this particular use so much as it might be a conversation that's broadened up about setbacks in general. And there is a difference with respect to where certain businesses are, because some are in the middle of just North State and nothing's really too close to around them, and some are closer to other things that are around them. I mean, there are differences about location. And so therein could lie sometimes the difference about setbacks. But I understand the point of not having it be, okay, you get to be 15 feet and you have to be 10 and you get 150. I get that. But what I'm asking is,
Well, you see, the thing is that this law is only adding a use. It's not doing anything other than adding, because right now, if you look at the law provides for child care and elder care facilities. So when this law was originally fashioned, memory care facilities like what may be proposed on this facility or assisted living, may not have been as fashionable or may not have been as common, so it wasn't anticipated. So now what you're doing is proposing to add a use. This is not a comprehensive review of all the other standards within the GB district.
Right.
It's just simply, it's focused only on adding one specific allowable use, and we're not talking about a specific property, although it may be in some people's mind it is, but
I'm not. I'm talking about the use. And so I'm still asking if now is the time that if we were going to discuss putting in any particular type of setback, would this be the time?
if the board, as a consensus board, decided that they wanted to look specifically at this use right now and say that the board felt specific standards were required, then the answer is yes, if the board feels that way.
And so then my question to the board is, if there's a comprehensive plan that review that's going to be happening, and one of those things that might be in there is setbacks, then wouldn't this not be the time to deal with
No, because
this?
we want to do it, we would want to do it all across the board. So we would want to do it at the same, my personal opinion is we would want to do it at the same time.
Okay.
If to start a study now would take time, we do have somebody in front of us that's looking to go into it. I don't understand why it can't be, no one has even seen a presentation of the proposed things, so I could be wrong, but what do you think? It's just, I just want,
Well, Eric, what they're saying is, I'm sorry, Councilman Blaha, they're saying this is the time if it is going to be addressed. So, I guess the question is if you don't agree with addressing it, but they're telling us that this is the time. That's what I'm asking. Or whether there was another time to discuss it.
I think what Wayne and I are saying, I don't mean to put words in Wayne's mouth, is that if there's something special about assisted living facilities that makes you think that there should be larger setbacks than some of the other actually more intensive uses that are permitted in the zone, and you want to attach larger setbacks to assisted living facilities, this would be the time. In terms of looking at the district, the general business district, to determine...
for other uses too, right?
Right. Then this would not be the time.
And so I believe that my personal belief is that both is the time. That now is the time to deal with this, and then going forward, it might be the time to look at what's in the comprehensive plan in terms of some of the suggestions that weren't pulled up or done in, I don't know what year we said, 2002. And I do believe when we went through the overview, this setbacks was one of those many things. And so I'm thinking that it is correct to do both, to do this now and to deal with whatever, because we don't know how long it's going to be, and we don't know how many other businesses may, or if we're talking about assisted living facility, we may have a few.
Well, what might be considered to be, and again, this is just something to consider in terms of discussion, perhaps sort of unfair about that way of considering it now, is that, let's just say for argument's sake that you decided to create setbacks, that were, perhaps in this particular case impacted the current interested party and who decided then not to proceed with this particular project on this property. And then another use comes in, let's just say an animal hospital, which may or may not be considered to be more
We have a
intensive
few
or
of
not.
those already.
Well,
Yeah, but
it could
but
be
you-
another. And that user would then come in and not be restricted with, to the new setbacks,
It has to be done.
which would be added to, which would only impact assisted living. Same thing with a nursing home can go in right now.
Because we already have that in the
because
zoning.
that's already allowed. So I think that's the issue right now is one of, to some degree, fairness for the what would be a current applicant who is proposing something and then would be faced with restrictions that would not be faced by a laundry list of other potential uses until the town board decides what's appropriate and what isn't appropriate.
And it's not like this is
district-wide.
I want to let Councilman Wilshire speak, but we are moving quite rapidly. We have one meeting a month. I know it doesn't seem like fast, but for government, it's pretty fast in our review of the comprehensive plan too. So, you have something to say, sir?
Yes, I was to Councilwoman speak. We always going back
Right.
to every meeting, every work session almost. We're going back to something. So I can't see the problem with going back to visit this again. And on top of that, I thought we had did this at our work session.
Yeah. And I
I
just want to point out that this is a public hearing. I want to point out that this is a public hearing. This will come up for discussion in a work session again on August 4th. So I think we need to hear from the public, because that's what a public hearing is all about. I'm sorry, August 5th.
I agree. This is no longer
Right.
Mr. Stolman and my.
Well, I just think, so I think we need to hear from the public, and we need to then close the public hearing, but the way you do it is that you call for a public hearing, you have a public hearing, you bring it again, all the results back and all the comments back to a work session, which will be August 4th, because we're off next week. 5th. 5th. It's going to be a long month. And then we can talk about it, and then maybe we can have some more, we can see more of possibly what, people are talking about.
I think Councilman Wiltshire's valid.
And isn't a comprehensive plan a living document? Don't you say that every time we start this, our little sessions?
And the code is as well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a public hearing.
Is there anyone that's come to address this issue? Please give your name and your residential address, please.
My name is Donna Sharrett, and I live at 84 Morningside Drive.
Before we go ahead, could you lift that up a little bit? That's it.
Must have tall shoes on. So, first of all, I would like to start. I am the resident behind this property in question, but I would like to start and make it very clear that I am not objecting to the usage change. I do approve that and feel through my personal experience and that of many friends of mine that there is a growing need for assisted living facilities, particularly memory care facilities. I do have questions and comments, though. First, I'd like to know how the public hearing was advertised, or was it not?
Oh, absolutely. It was in the Journal News. Oh, I'm sorry. It was posted in the Journal News. It was also on the website.
And also 2 weeks ago, this is the way it goes, Donna. We call for a public hearing 2 weeks ago. Then it has to be advertised in our paper, which is the Journal News. Then it goes up on the website. And then we talked about it last week at the work session that we would be having the public hearings again. And the only thing that we didn't do, and I will start doing now, is I will put it in our supervisor's update. But we try to communicate with people as best we can. Okay? But there's a lot of legal things that took it.
Yeah, I know. I think the legal, we've changed as a culture so quickly. I subscribe online, and I emailed the Journal News, and they do not post public notices.
Oh, okay.
So it's just. I think we need to catch up with.
But that's how every public hearing.
Right. I realize that, but I do think that these living documents and rules and everything need to somehow come up to speed with.
Yeah.
With the way we get our information now. So in regards to the objective on page C3, which is what this is being based on, to cooperate for the comprehensive plan, to cooperate in efforts to make a wide variety of housing opportunities available to members of all of our community. I just would like to point out, from my experience, the assisted living facilities are usually not, they won't be exclusively for Town of Ossining residents, and there could be the possibility that there won't be Town of Ossining residents in there. So I just want to clarify that, to my understanding, that we're basing this on that it's going to add things for the residents, but it could in fact be no residents in this facility. So I just want to
Okay,
clarify that,
okay.
unless I'm wrong. And then also there's a
It's not a town-owned
No, I know, but
facility or
we're
anything.
based-
It's
we're
a
doing this
privately owned,
based, I just want to clarify.
Okay,
because
okay.
It says that we're doing this
it's a
just to
business, yeah,
add
yeah.
housing possibilities for
Oh.
And
residents.
it's not strictly for
Right, and
Town of
it's,
Austin.
Right,
it's
right.
could
Yes.
possibly not be doing that, but it is, allowing the possibility. But it's just things that I wanted
Sure.
to bring up. And also, there's a variety of facilities that could be put here, and I don't know what Artist's policy is. When my experience, it could be private pay, or it could be like Medicare, Medicaid, VA. If it's a private pay, that will exclude a lot of our residents, I do believe. I don't know if there's any way, when you have, like the 558 North State, they had to put in some affordable.
This is not like under the affordable housing thing. This is actually, it's a business. The residents are as if you were in Atria.
Right, which is private pay, right?
No, it's. I'm sure there's Medicare in there.
Not
Yeah,
all of
I'm
them.
sure.
Not all of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, that's just things
Yeah.
I want the board to know, that
Yep.
it's not something that's just going to be available to everyone, possibly. It won't be
Right.
available to all of our residents. I do have a question, just because I just don't know. How was the number 0.5 of the off-street parking determined? Like, how do you come up with that?
The applicant actually had proposed 0.4, and based upon my research, I thought that was just a bit low, so I
Right.
upped it to 0.5.
Okay. So is there statistics on that or something, or?
There are many sources. We have a multitude of zoning laws that we have access to,
Right.
and I looked at many, and that's the way I generally craft zoning, is to look at as many as I can within reason, and then come up with what I think is
Right.
appropriate.
Right. There often is very full parking lots at some of these places, and I don't know, I could not tell you the ones that I went to, what their, and it's in different states, so I don't know what their number was. It could have been 0.4, or who knows. I just wanted to know how you came about it. So I would like to refer to the page before C3, which is page C2 of the comprehensive plan. And this is going to address, I guess, what some of the things that were just brought up. C2, the objective is to require suitable buffer areas for non-residential uses and properties abutting neighborhoods and residential areas. I strongly feel that the proposed local law should not be adopted or adopting laws based on the comprehensive plan's recommendations, which protect both the general business district and the neighboring residents. The comprehensive plan has been around for 12 years. We bought our house after that was adopted, and for a law to be put through before those things are addressed could absolutely impact my property and my value of my property, which happens to be my biggest life investment. So I do hope that that is considered. There's two things that I think should be instituted. One is the Architectural Review Board, which, as I understand from our discussions about the comprehensive plan, the planning board could be given that authority, which seems a rather easy thing to institute. And this could protect against inharmonious development. As I understand it now, the planning board is powerless to consider types of buildings, and we have several types that have gone in recently that are pretty non-harmonious and do not benefit the general business district. So I think that that would be a great thing to get instituted before any of these projects are allowed to be presented. And the second is, I was going to ask if you could include it in there, but now we have that answer. So either include it in this or a separate law requiring more harmonious buffers and more adequate screening should be adopted. For instance, in the code, it says that trees could be planted, or I believe, or a 6-foot fence. My property is so much higher than the North State Road property. It's almost absurd to think that a 6-foot fence would offer any screening whatsoever. And those kind of things I think need to be looked at. Most of the properties that abut North State Road are elevated. Now, about this being similar to other usages, it's a 24-hour, 365-day business. It doesn't shut down. So I do think it's different than most of the businesses, or all of the business currently on North State Road, in the fact that it will always be operating. There will be shift changes. There'll be people going in and out of the driveways in the parking lot. There will be deliveries. There will be, in my experience, there's going to be people coming in and out of that. So living behind this, there will be no Sundays. There will be no evening hours where we can use our property without hearing stuff from this. So I'm not opposing this usage change at all. I think it's something that we need as a community, because it is, I think there was just a study that there's going to be more and more need for this. It's very unfortunate. No one wants to put a family member in one of these places, and I'm sure we don't desire that for ourselves. So I am not opposing it, but I think that under the circumstances, there should be more adequate buffers between the properties.
Well,
It is recommended in the comprehensive plan.
well, you want me to speak now? So, I think that those are some very, very good suggestions, and I think that when this goes, if this particular development moves forward, I think when it goes before the planning board, these strong suggestions that came out in this meeting, about the buffer zones and the stuff, and instead of fencing, put bushes in, so you have a little bit more privacy behind the particular property that we're talking about right now.
The planning board, as it stands right now, cannot enforce any business to do. I mean,
Oh, but
they can.
You can work with the developer.
You can absolutely.
Okay.
But there's
The
no
developer does not have to.
safeguard, right?
They
I
do
mean,
not.
Okay.
They have to go by what is in the code, correct?
The planning board does have the authority to require adequate screening based on the application. The planning board does have it's in the code itself. It does have certain powers and authority. It may not be able to necessarily modify, at least on a case-by-case basis, the actual setback requirements, but it does have certain inherent authority, to ameliorate impacts of particular uses. David, do you agree with that? I mean, I think that's pretty clear.
I believe it does. We also have overlaying the zoning law, the seeker regulations.
Right.
And every project is subject to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and the planning board, as the lead agency in the case of a situation like that, really can institute things above and beyond. As Wayne said, perhaps not larger setbacks, but making sure that there is a buffer, there is screening, et cetera, et cetera.
And just good neighbor. But Councilman Blaha?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for coming and voicing your very good suggestions and comments. I'm particularly sensitive to screening and buffer areas. If for whatever reason those that discretion is not in our laws. I'd like to certainly make sure that that's addressed. But I also feel, that I'm not sure that the whole setback issue is appropriate at this time to address for this particular application, but certainly imposing appropriate fencing, plantings, making sure that the lighting is appropriate and not, directed out, directed in, appropriate parking. I think hopefully all those are within the planning board's discretion, and that they would exercise that discretion to protect your property rights.
Yeah.
Right, mine and everyone else on that has properties abutting. So on the two properties behind this particular property is a stream and a wetland. So there are going to be additional overlays. But the thing is once this law gets passed, there could be there's certainly other places that could be built upon, and I think that it's. I end this by saying I think that these two actions that I listed, taken prior to the adoption of the local law for this purpose, will ensure that the intent of the comprehensive plan is being followed as in the logical order. And it does state on page C2 that they want to better make it more harmonious between residents and developers. And I have been emailing, I'm sure you all have my emails, prior to this applicant coming before you. And I respect all of you, and I support all of you. I am an active community person, and I have requested that this portion of the comprehensive plan be addressed. And someone who doesn't own property in the town of Ossining has requested that this law be written, and
It's
their
only- but it's-
request is
it's-
being given more pertinence than my request.
I don't think that that's true, but that's again your perception of it, and and you can. But the fact that we're addressing the comprehensive plan, you don't need the Board of Architectural Review. It doesn't hurt, but you don't need it to talk to people about what you want the building, because that's really on the facades of the building and what does it look like, and right.
But that's the veterinarian hospital and
No.
UMass.
The veterinarian
I mean, they're two
hospital
examples
was
of horrible situations.
Yeah. That
I was going to say, I think that I think the concern that I have is that we have seen recently some development, various uses. There's no one type that we're picking on. There's housing, there's animals, there's all kinds of things. The issue is within not the business but the buildings. And so I think that I go back to wanting to address an issue now while we have the time here, and then going to deal with everything else, because as these things come up, they're there. And the planning board may have some discretion, but once again, I go back to the fact that we've had some new businesses coming up where there have been some questions, and so we want the planning board to have all of the legal options that it has at their disposal, and not necessarily have to deal with the fact that they can suggest and not have it listened to.
I do want to comment on just one thing, which, again, I'm not here to advocate one way or the other. I just want to make sure that you do understand, though, that under the town code, section 200-50, approval of site plans, the objectives, as stated, and whether or not you feel they've been properly followed or not, I mean, everybody's, like I said, it's, a matter of opinion, I suppose, but in considering and acting upon site plans, this is straight from the law, the planning board shall, not may, but shall take into consideration the public health, safety, and welfare, and comfort and convenience of the public in general, and of the residents of the proposed development, and the immediate neighborhood in particular, and may prescribe such appropriate conditions and safeguards as may be required in order that the result of its action shall, to the maximum extent possible, further the expressed intent of this chapter and the accomplishment of the following objectives. And then they talk about traffic, circulation, parking, landscaping, and screening. So the planning board is empowered to impose conditions, including enhanced screening depending on the use, and the planning board has, in certain situations, done that. It depends on the use, before it. It depends on the extent of the use. Now, again, whether or not it's up to this board could act in any way it sees fit. The passing of a local law is discretionary on the part of this board at this point. So, I just want the facts at hand as to what the planning board can and cannot do under the law as it exists right now.
So I think what we have to do is we have to continue with the public hearing. I want to emphasize that this is a public hearing, and that part of this discussion can continue on the August 4th work session. Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's it.
August 5th.
Huh? August 5th, sorry. I'm going to put it on the top of my page. I apologize to everyone. It's August 5th.
Is there anyone else who has come to address the board?
Yes, hi. My name is Ken Camber, and I live at 84 Morningside Drive. I do have one scenario where this type of use for people that have Alzheimer's as well as dementia and sundown differ from other types of uses that are currently available. And that is, these people have a tendency to have flight, meaning that when they're outside, they walk off. And you follow the news, you might have seen this. This is very common. So in that regard, there is a special use for this type usage, this type of land usage, I believe, where there needs to be a border to protect the residents that are in the residential zone that border the general business district, as well as for the patients themselves, right? So not to be able to walk off. And so I think you should take that into consideration.
Well, thank you.
As far as these buffers and all these other things. But there is a special condition where it's not exactly the same as everybody else.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
That's all my comment. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who's come to address the board?
May I just speak to that issue for just 1 second? If this is a medical facility, which I understand it probably has some type of involvement, then there has to be. I'm sure that the company, Artis Senior Living, would have state requirements, health requirements governing this kind of a facility. So perhaps in the I'm sorry.
State code or
In the state,
law?
yes, in the state code,
or
but
the
in our
DOH? Site plan approval.
code, our site plan approval. So not only would we have to face that, planning board face that in terms of
The seeker, would that fall into seeker?
Well, no, it wouldn't,
Site
but,
plan review.
yeah,
Under standard site plan review.
But this
you have
is-
to refer
this
that
is-
to any local agents.
right.
right.
I'm
yeah.
sure there's something interior, within the interior of the building, I'm sure you're 100%, but my understanding would most likely be that there's also an outdoor sitting area for these residents.
I think that we're,
And in
yeah,
that
we're,
case, that's
Those
what I
are the
want
kinds
to,
of
that's why
things-
I'm bringing.
Those are the kinds of things that are unique to this type of facility.
no,
Right.
I'm sure, most nursing facilities have outside help. But, thank you, we'll take that, we'll
So I'm just
make
saying
sure
if
they
they're
take it into
outside the building,
consideration.
then
Right.
making sure that they don't wander off.
I think that they have to be very, very careful with the health department and everything, that they have a lot of security in their building. I think, unfortunately,
Yeah, I'm talking about outside the building.
yeah, unfortunately, most of the people that wander and get hurt are people that are still in homes, and people are trying to take care of them, so,
Well, I know of cases personally,
okay,
in my personal life, where they have been in this type of facility.
Yeah.
And he tried climbing an 8-foot wall. Right.
So there was a wall, so-
It's medical,
Yeah.
flight. I mean, it's not.
okay. Okay, but definitely take that into consideration, so. Anybody else that want to speak on that issue, on this issue? Public hearing?
Good evening, Supervisor and members of the Town Board. My name is Janet Garris. I'm a partner with Del Bello, Donnell and Weingarten, Wise & Whitaker in White Plains, and I'm here this evening on behalf of Artist Senior Living. They are the petitioner before you, and the local law that's before you is a little bit different than what we had originally proposed in our petition. Working with your planning consultant and the planning board, things changed a little bit from the time that we made the application. I didn't plan to speak on this topic this evening and didn't plan any sort of presentation, but wanted to bring up a couple of things that I thought were important. First of all, what the petition is really addressing is a particular use in a particular district. We've set out for you in our petition that we believe that the addition of this use in this district is appropriate. It is something that is consistent with your existing comprehensive plan, which called for the introduction of additional uses in the GB district, such as this particular use. With regard to setbacks, in particular setbacks for particular uses, my professional opinion, and pardon me for this, is that I don't think that it's an appropriate time to address this particular use and this particular setbacks if this board is not going to consider it as a conditional use. If you are going to consider a new comprehensive plan where you do plan to do
We're only reviewing it.
reviewing your comprehensive plan or perhaps doing an overhaul of your GB district regulations, then that would be the appropriate time, in my opinion, to introduce new setbacks. A couple of things I wanted to mention. Stolman had talked about the parking requirement, and we had proposed .4 in our petition, and that was revised in your proposed local law to .5. I just wanted to mention to you that when we proposed that .4, it wasn't something that was just taken out of the blue. It is the ITE, Institute of Traffic Engineers, standard for assisted living facilities. So that was one of the other things I wanted to mention. We are sensitive to the neighborhood. We are sensitive to the residential community that's to the rear of the site, and sensitive to the other properties that are on either side. I think that, respectfully, some of the issues that are raised tonight are site planning issues, which will be adequately addressed by the planning board, particularly with regard to screening and other things. We are respecting all of the bulk and dimensional regulations of the GB district, and any of the uses that are currently permitted in the GB district could build within that setback, regardless of what that use is. If they chose to build to the maximum permitted bulk and dimensions under the code, they could do that. We are not proposing to do that here. So I think a lot of the issues are site planning issues. We are, as I mentioned, we are sensitive to the community. We are happy to work with the community to accomplish what is what we think is something that is a use that will be good for both the town and for our client. Assisted living facilities tend to be facilities that are good generators of revenue for the town, don't generate school children. So, we do think it's an appropriate use in this district. And again, there are site planning issues that were raised tonight that I do think can be appropriately addressed by the planning board. So we do have our consulting team here if you have any questions, but I don't want to take up more of your time.
Thank you.
Well, we thank you very much, and I want you to. I would like to say for myself, and everything I've ever heard from everybody on the board, and is that we absolutely agree that this is a kind of business that we would appreciate to have in our town. That I think even in the public speaking, they said that we believe that there's more of a need for these type of facilities, and that may be unfortunate, but the need is there and will be growing, and we absolutely appreciate that you have come to us. This is not this conversation was not meant to in any way
Understood.
state that was a it was a negative issue. It was just in terms of clearly just in terms of buildings and
right. And we understand that, and in particular with regard to this specific petitioner or applicant, they are the contract vendee of the property. If this zoning is adopted and we do get site plan approval from the planning board, they will buy this property and they will become a resident of the town and a property owner in the town.
Right.
So, it's
Well, thank you very
they're
much.
looking to establish themselves here.
Thank you very much. No.
Just one last question, and it's a quick one. Approximately how many residents would this building,
This particular facility is proposed to be a 64-bed facility.
I'm sorry,
64 beds.
64. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? The public? Madam Clerk.
May I then have a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
We will move on to announcements.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There is so much going on in the town. What a magnificent place to live and to be part of a community that truly cares. The town and the town board and administration is proud of its openness and how transparent we are. You can go to the Town of Ossining webpage and find out just about anything that we are working on or have worked on. Sometimes each of us gets frustrated in how things are going or the speed of a project or decision, much like our comprehensive plan review. It is essential to understand that everything takes time. Please don't let others' agendas influence your investigation for what is best for you and your fellow residents. Concerning the proposals of the police stations for the unincorporated area, we are getting great feedback from residents and commercial property owners. As many of you are aware, it takes time to complete the review of any project or contract, and there are many steps into ensuring that our due diligence is done properly. There needs to be justification of the costs, as well as documentation that could change any project or contract, as well as the bottom line. Some of the questions that we've asked the Village of Ossining is that we understand that for the first 6 months you are using overtime to man the shifts for the unincorporated area, with the remainder of the year using experienced officers while the new officers receive some training from the village. Is that assumption correct? What does your contract read about seniority concerning overtime? Was that taken into consideration when you developed your proposal? The village agrees it does take up to 10 officers to cover the shifts, and so we requested with days off, sickness, and vacation. We are interested in seeing your spreadsheets, and they are working on that right now, showing the cost of the town team of officers for the entire year. What is your policy of backfilling when there's sickness of an officer assigned to the town? And if it is to use officers on overtime, is that been calculated into the proposal? What will the village budget? How will the village budget be affected? If at the end of the year we found there's a cost difference between the proposal and the actual cost, who will be responsible for that difference? Will the town be invoiced, or will the village taxpayers become responsible? We'd like to also better understand if it is the opposite. If we do not spend the entire contract, would we be invoiced for a less amount? Please identify to us what would cause the village to enact an increase, extreme circumstances, to the proposed price. Please give a breakdown, and we assume that breakdown will carry for the entire contract. While we do not have an SRO at this time, we currently have an officer at AMD through the lunch and recess periods and at dismissal. What support does the Village of Ossining see for the schools? We believe that the schools must be part of any formal program so that they understand and are partners in the program. Should the Village of Ossining be chosen and the program be established for working with the students in a proactive way, we have all the numbers, percent by population, from when we spent months trying to get others to work with us on the SRO position, and would be happy to share those numbers and participate with all the other entities. That's what we have for the police. Tonight we will have we've had two public hearings on zoning amendments that will allow us to offer different services in our commercial corridor. Having mixed use on the North State Road will bring more people to the commercial district and help our other shop owners and restaurants. The town board is very conscious of the situations with the Ossining schools and will work and how it would not be affected by this particular addition to our zoning code. And working with the rezoning of the two GE properties, as Mr. Stolman has said, it simply makes their property all the same zoning. Thank you, David Stolman, for coming tonight and explaining the process to the residents. And having a very engaged conversation, I might add. We are also voting on zoning changes that will not increase density, but rather clear up some language concerning special permits rather than special permits and make it as of right. We will also make the lot size 20,000 square feet with a maximum of 2 houses versus 40,000 feet square feet with a maximum of 4 houses. This will allow us to get off the HUD list of 6 municipalities who are perceived that their zoning is exclusionary. Again, we will be voting on tax certs tonight, and while we move forward with our total town assessment, for more information, please go to the town webpage and find out more about the reassessment of the entire town of Ossining, which includes the Village of Ossining, the entire unincorporated area, and 91% of the town, the Village of Briarcliff Manor. Or if you don't have access to the webpage, you can always call us at the office 762-6001. A lot of our information is down at the clerk's office, and we will gladly send you out a copy if you want of anything that you are interested in. And if you want to call and just chat with us about it, we're always available. We do run lean and mean, and sometimes we're in meetings, so please leave a message if you call.
Hi, yes. Just to follow up on the request for proposal for the police departments, I just wanted to say that I'm still asking for more people.
Well, actually, we all are asking.
We are asking for, sorry.
That's all right.
We are asking for more people to please give us your opinion, let us know what you're thinking. We have had more, but with respect to the importance of this, I really would like to hear from more. I have encountered people who don't know anything about the fact that the contracts are up. And it's understandable. Not everybody's on Facebook. Not everybody reads the Gazette. You know, there are pockets of where people get information, and the places where some of the information has been reported are not places that everybody looks at. And so I think the supervisor, Madam Supervisor, have we discussed, we don't necessarily have the funds in the town to do mass mailings. That costs money. But what we can do is create a flyer, and I think we're going to have one side that denotes the fact that there is a request for proposal between 2 of the police departments. And on the other side of that flyer, we are going to remind people that there is a reassessment, reevaluation. And so I have volunteered, and anyone who's willing to help me, to go and try to disseminate as many of these flyers as I can, and or we can, whoever that might be. So if you are a resident or a friend or a friend of the unincorporated town, or just an involved citizen and would like to assist in disseminating that information by leaving flyers at doors, we cannot put them in mailboxes. That breaks some federal laws. Please contact us at the town. The supervisor's email is
sdonnelly@townofaustining.com.
And my email is Jeffrey, Jeffrey, @townofaustining.com. So thank you, and please tell your friends and your neighbors. We really would like to hear from the unincorporated town.
Are there any other announcements? Okay, I have
None
one.
said, Madam Clerk.
I have one this evening.
Oh, you do?
Yes. On Thursday, July 24th, at the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center,
Oh, that's right.
Westchester County Clerk will have his mobile office at the community center. So anyone that is interested in getting a passport or has any business with him or his office, please go to the community center between 11 and 2 p.m.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I
Great.
got a phone call.
Yeah, I believe there were robocalls.
Yeah, there were
but Some
robocalls.
people could not understand.
Ah.
So I got a bunch of calls today.
So is it more clerk services than just passport? Like if you needed the Westchester County Clerk for something else?
I think that he will have individuals there available to assist with other
Okay,
problems.
I'm not sure what you...
But
yeah.
it's mainly for the passports.
Right. Great, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any public comments on any agenda items? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go into board resolutions. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby approves the July 8th, 2014
Okay,
minutes of the
I should
regular
guess.
meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolved, the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated July 22nd, 2014, the amount of $575,305.07. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we will be doing a number of certioraries. I will not read the complete resolutions for each, but they are available online or in my office. Michael Kelly versus Town of Ossining, or his proceedings pursuant to Article 7 of the Real Property Tax Law of the State of New York were instituted by Michael Kelly against the Town of Ossining to review the tax assessments made on petitioner's property located at 1300 Pleasantville Road, Village of Briarcliff Manor, Town of Ossining, designated on the tax assessment map of the Town of Ossining as Section 98.10-1-6 for tax assessment years 2012 and 2013, which proceedings are now pending in the Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Westchester, under index numbers 65196, 2012, and 64520, 2013, and whereas the above petitioner has agreed to a compromise and settlement of such proceedings, subject to the approval of the town board, correcting and reducing the assessed valuation of its real property and improvements as follows. Resolved that the town attorney is hereby authorized and directed to procure and execute any documents necessary to effectuate such settlement. It is further resolved, subject to the approval of the Supreme Court, Westchester County, that the assessor is authorized and directed to make the changes and corrections to the individual unit assessment on the tax assessment roll of the Town of Ossining, which will be ordered pursuant to the consent judgment to be entered in accordance with the terms of this settlement, and the receiver of taxes is authorized and directed to process and pay the refund of Town of Ossining taxes estimated to be $234.52, which will be ordered pursuant to said consent judgment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Well,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Michael Kelly versus the Town of Ossining. Whereas proceedings pursuant to Article 7 of the Real Property Tax Law of the State of New York were instituted by Michael Kelly against the Town of Ossining to review the tax assessments made on petitioner's property located at 47 South Highland Avenue, Town of Ossining, and designated on the tax assessment map of the Town of Ossining as Section 97.7-6-21 for the tax assessment years 2012 and 2013, which proceedings are now pending in the Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Westchester, under index number 65192, 2012, and 64530, 2013, and whereas the above petitioner has agreed to a compromise and settlement of such proceedings, subject to the approval of the town board, correcting and reducing the assessed valuation of its real property and improvements as follows. Whereas any and all refunds necessitated by said settlement will be made without interest, and whereas the town board, upon the recommendation of the assessor concurred by the town attorney, finds the proposed settlement appropriate and in the best interest of the town of Ossining. Resolved that the town attorney is hereby authorized and directed to procure and execute any documents necessary to effectuate such settlement. And it is further resolved, subject to the approval of the Supreme Court, Westchester County, that the assessor is authorized and directed to make the changes and corrections to the individual unit assessment on the tax assessment roll of the Town of Ossining, which will be ordered pursuant to the consent judgment to be entered in accordance with the terms of this settlement, and the receiver of taxes is authorized and directed to process and pay the refund of Town of Ossining taxes estimated to be $166.16, which will be ordered pursuant to said consent judgment. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Michael Kelly versus the Town of Ossining. Whereas proceedings pursuant to Article 7 of the Real Property Tax Law of the State of New York were instituted by Michael Kelly against the Town of Ossining to review the tax assessments made on petitioner's property located at 1300 Pleasantville Road, Village of Briarcliff Manor, Town of Ossining, and designated on the tax assessment map of the Town of Ossining as Section 98.10-1-6 for tax assessment years 2003 to 2008, which proceedings are now pending in the Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Westchester, under index numbers 15233-03, 14951-04, 15727-05, 19077-06, 19101-07, and 20155-08. And whereas the above petitioner has agreed to a compromise and settlement of such proceedings, subject to the approval of the town board, correcting and reducing the assessed valuations of its real property and improvements as follows. Whereas any and all refunds necessitated by said settlement will be made without interest, and whereas the town board, upon the recommendation of the assessor, concurred by the town attorney, finds the proposed settlement appropriate and in the best interest of the town of Ossining, now therefore be resolved, subject to the approval of the Supreme Court, Westchester County, that the assessor is authorized and directed to make the changes and corrections to the individual unit assessment on the tax assessment roll of the town of Ossining, which will be ordered pursuant to consent judgment to be entered in accordance with the terms of this settlement, and the receiver of taxes is authorized and directed to process and pay the refund of town of Ossining taxes estimated to be $367.09, which will be ordered pursuant to said consent judgment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? CVS Albany LLC, 2080-02 and 03 versus Town of Ossining. Whereas proceedings pursuant to Article 7 of the Real Property Tax Law of the State of New York were instituted by CVS Albany LLC, 2080-02 and 03 against the Town of Ossining to review the tax assessments made on petitioner's property located at 210 South Highland Avenue, Town of Ossining, and designated on the tax assessment map of the Town of Ossining as Section 97.15, Block 3, Lot 13, for tax assessment years 2009 to 2013, which proceedings are now pending in the Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Westchester, under index numbers 218-7309, 235-6110, 143-9311, 654-7912, and 653-9713, and whereas the above petitioner has agreed to a compromise and settlement of such proceedings, subject to the approval of the town board, correcting and reducing the assessed valuation of its real property and improvements as follows. Whereas any and all refunds necessitated by said settlement will be made without interest, and whereas the town board, upon the recommendation of the assessor, concurred by the town attorney, finds the proposed settlement appropriate and in the best interest of the town of Ossining. Now therefore it be resolved, subject to the approval of the Supreme Court, Westchester County, that the assessor is authorized and directed to make the changes and corrections to the individual unit assessment on a tax assessment roll of the town of Ossining, which will be ordered pursuant to the consent judgment to be entered in accordance with the terms of this settlement, and the receiver of taxes is authorized and directed to process and pay the refund of town of Ossining taxes estimated to be $2,255.04, which will be ordered pursuant to said consent judgment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Lawrence Prager versus Town of Ossining. Whereas proceedings pursuant to Article 7 of the Real Property Tax Law of the State of New York were instituted by Lawrence Prager against the Town of Ossining to review the tax assessments made on petitioner's property located at 56 Becker Lane, Town of Ossining, and designated on the tax assessment map of the Town of Ossining as Section 97.20, Block 1, Lot 30, formerly known as 97.20-1-30.1 and 97.20-1-30.2, for tax assessment year 2013, which proceedings are now pending in the Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Westchester, under index number 673-1913, and whereas the above petitioner has agreed to a compromise and settlement of such proceedings, subject to the approval of the town board, correcting and reducing the assessed valuation of its real property and improvements as follows. Whereas any and all refunds necessitated by said settlement will be made without interest, and whereas the town board, upon the recommendation of the assessor, concurred by the town attorney, finds the proposed settlement appropriate and in the best interest of the town of Austin. Now therefore it is resolved, subject to the approval of the Supreme Court, Westchester County, that the assessor is authorized and directed to make the changes and corrections to the individual unit assessment on the tax assessment roll of the town of Austin, which will be ordered pursuant to the consent judgment to be entered in accordance with the terms of this settlement. And the receiver of taxes is authorized and directed to process and pay the refund of town of Austin taxes estimated to be $234.85, which will be ordered pursuant to said consent judgment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
May I interrupt before we make a decision here? Madam Clerk, under the paragraph which begins this action, whereas proceedings pursuant to Article 7, if you could just take a look at the address on Becker Avenue. I believe you indicated it was 56 Becker Avenue?
No, 57 Becker Lane.
I'm sorry, 56 Becker Lane.
57.
57.
It's a
Good.
I did.
Sharp ears
Oh,
there.
I'm sorry. 57.
The dude across the street. Good
All those in-
catch there, young man.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have Local Law 2 for 2014 for the purpose of amending the multifamily provisions of the zoning law, and this will be a roll call vote. Whereas the town board is considering the adoption of a local law for the purpose of amending the multifamily provisions of the town zoning law, proposed action, and whereas the town board has found that the local law is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan in that the plan states that one of its objectives is to cooperate in efforts to make a wide variety of housing opportunities available to members of the community. Page C-3. And whereas in accordance with the requirements of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, the town board is the only involved agency with respect to the proposed action and is therefore the lead agency, and whereas the town board held a public hearing regarding the subject local law on June 25, 2014, during which all persons interested were given an opportunity to be heard, and whereas in accordance with Section 200-52 of the town zoning law, the town board referred the subject local law to the town planning board, and via a memo dated July 9, 2014, received comments and a positive recommendation in response. Whereas the town board has given due consideration to the planning board's comments and recommendation and has revised the proposed local law in response thereto, and whereas in accordance with Section 239-1 and M of the New York State General Municipal Law, the town board referred the subject local law to the Westchester County Department of Planning and received a response from the Westchester County Department of Planning by letter dated June 16, 2014. And whereas said letter from the Westchester County Department of Planning states in part that these revisions should expand opportunities for multifamily developments through the reduction of minimum lot area and streamline the procedure for consideration of such applications, and whereas town board has given due consideration to the comments of the Westchester County Department of Planning, now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1. The town board hereby adopts and incorporates the recitations and statements set forth above as if fully set forth and resolved herein. 2. After conducting a hard look at the full environmental assessment form and other materials related to the proposed action, the town board hereby adopts the attached negative declaration for reasons stated therein, thereby finding that the proposed action will have no significant adverse impact on the environment, and thereby ending the CEQA process. 3. The town board hereby adopts Local Law 2 of 2014, except as specifically modified by the amendments contained therein. The Town of Austin zoning law, as originally adopted and amended from time to time thereafter, is to remain in full force and effect. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Can I just, and I'm all for it, I'm just asking a question. The, Mr. Stolman, the document that we received with the draft of that local law, I was a little confused by. So I think the first draft did not have, was it a clean change or was it a clean draft before changes? I just really was confused by the drafts. We had one
Because
that
you
was
left out the line, you left it in so people could see what you changed
you
in the
had
law.
changed.
Right. First
Okay.
version that I gave you had double underlining indicating new wording and had strikeout for the wording that would be deleted. So it showed very specifically what the changes are relative to the current zoning. That was the first version. I believe you now have a clean version that has no double underlining and no strikeout.
Well, that's the one that the clerk just read. Are you talking
No.
about,
No,
the
no,
law?
I mean
Oh, we
the
do have,
actual
oh, yeah,
law
yeah.
itself.
Yes, we do have that,
Okay.
yeah.
So, okay.
Did that answer your question?
I believe it, okay. So the clean version is the updated version.
Yes.
Okay.
The clean version is the final version.
So, and the reason why I was confused is because even within the law, it still talks about conditional uses permitted, and I thought we don't
No, that's.
have those anymore.
No, we don't have those anymore.
Right.
So, none of the multifamily uses are now by conditional use permit.
Right. So I had a hard, it's okay.
You know, I think I may know what you mean. For example, on the bottom, I'm not sure which version you have, but on the bottom of page 4, it talks about conditional uses
Yes.
in the multifamily-in district, but that's for inns and bed and breakfast establishments, not for multifamily.
I see. So that's why.
So the words conditional use are still in there?
But it's for other usages, not for
Not
this
multifamily.
multifamily. Okay, I understand. That now, that's why I got kind of lost.
Sure.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Jeffrey?
Aye.
And Supervisor Donnelly?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good night,
David.
David.
I think it's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, the copy of the law, a copy of the neg deck, which is the negative declaration, and a copy of the resolution will be available in the clerk's office. We'll make sure it's available for anyone that wants to look at it or take a copy of one.
Okay. Move on to correspondence to be received and filed.
Oh, so it's like,
Resolved
Yes.
that the town board of the town of
They came
Austin
up.
hereby
Thank
accepts.
you.
have to leave you.
Yeah,
All
no.
right. We understand.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Hereby accept the following meeting minutes. Town Planning Board Resolution Wetlands Permit Approval dated July 7th, 2014, and Town Planning Board Minutes dated June 25th, 2014. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have no monthly reports. We'll move into visitor recognition. Bobby? No? Okay, then might I have a motion to adjourn to executive session for legal advice?
Motion to adjourn to, see, I can't speak. Executive session for legal advice.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So ends our July 22nd, 2014 Town Board meeting of the Town of Austin. I want to remind everyone that on Friday, August 1st, so 1 week from this Friday, don't forget, every Friday evening there's a concert at the waterfront, except for August 1st. And the reason that there's not a concert at the waterfront on August 1st is because it's the Fireman's Parade night. So on August 1st, the kickoff, put on your calendars, everybody. The kickoff for the parade is 7 p.m. And they're talking about having 35 companies. So it's going to be a big parade. So it's very exciting to bring the children down, young and old children, because everybody likes to see a fire truck. It's very exciting when we do this. The parade starts at around Melrose Lumber, comes all the way down Croton, across and down Main Street till the reviewing stand, which is across the street from the post office. We do not have a meeting next Tuesday, which is the 29th. It is a fifth Tuesday. And I think that this board has done such an exceptional job that I would not even suggest that we have a special meeting. But our next meeting will be August 5th, and that will be that's a Tuesday night, and that will be a work session at 16 Croton Avenue. So there's a lot of exciting things going on in Ossining. Make sure you participate in them. This Saturday, as everyone knows right now, is the St. Augustine's Festival. Started tonight. It goes all through this week. This Saturday is Summerfest at Market Square. The first, as I said before, will be the Fireman's Parade. So there's a lot of things going on. And we have had, and I don't want to curse it, but we've had such an exceptional weather summer so far. Got a little humid today, but it's been exceptional. For the end of July, it's been exceptional. So we're very, very happy with that. Again, with the storms, they come on quickly. Just be very, very careful.
I would congratulate.
Yeah, I am not 100% sure. But as we know, that the Village of Ossining does take honors in almost every parade they go to. So we're very, very happy with the fire department that takes care of the majority, and we're very, very happy with Briarcliff Fire Department, which takes care of District 20 and most of District 17. So thank you very much. Have a great week. We'll see you on August 5th.